Hello, this is our presentation of our paper, titled Unlocking Understanding, an investigation of multimodal communication and virtual reality collaboration. Collaboration is the action of working with someone to produce or create something. With the advancement of technology, especially extended reality, collaboration is more powerful than ever, with the use of these technologies reducing costs and resources in many situations. However, with these advancements, including the possibility of collaborative virtual reality tasks, comes the question of how many and which communication modalities to implement for use in exchanging information. In this work, we comprehensively investigate which combinations of natural communication modalities are best suited for such tasks. Shannon's theory of communication details the mathematical equation of communication, which is explained in terms of 5 basic components: a source, a transmitter, a channel, a receiver, and a destination. These components apply broadly to communication, which includes collaborative virtual reality, or VR, tasks. Such tasks usually require some sort of communication, but usually the implementation of improper modalities for various tasks can lead to the information not being communicated properly. Although recent work has investigated the use of specific modalities in VR collaboration, more comprehensive investigations have been done only for augmented reality and mixed reality rather than for virtual reality. This presents a gap in research or an investigation of communication modalities in collaborative VR tasks, especially natural ones. In order to investigate which modalities are best suited for collaborative VR tasks, we use an asymmetric synchronous assembly task to elicit information from users that hold both spatial and descriptive information. The assembly task involved a mentor who is meant to observe a reference assembly only they can see and deliver instructions. It also involved a mentee who was meant to interpret those instructions from the mentor and take objects from an adjacent shelf and place them on a shared table between them and the mentor. During the task, participants would communicate using a combination of voice, hand gestures, and head gaze. For our study, we conducted a within subjects single-factor study with 7 conditions. The within subject factor was communication combination, with the conditions being voice only, gestures only, head gaze only, voice plus gestures, voice plus head gaze, gestures plus head gaze, and voice plus gestures plus head gaze. We had 50 participants, which meant that we had 25 pairs of participants, with 27 of them being male, 23 of them being female, along with them having a mean age of 19. Objective dependent variables were task completion time, object selection time, and object manipulation time. Subjective dependent variables were task load, system usability, simulator sickness and presence, as well as subjective questions on frustration, difficulty, modality preference, communication difficulty, task difficulty, mental engagement, and physical engagement. For our procedure, when participants came in as a pair, we randomly assigned one of them the role of mentor and the other the role of mentee. This was done while explaining the premise of the task, after which we conducted training for participants by letting them go through the task once. After this, users completed the task 7 more times, each time with a unique communication condition, while we collected objective metrics during the trial. After every trial, we collected subjective metrics as mentioned before. After participants completed all 7 trials, they were administered one final post-study survey and were thanked for their time, compensated, and dismissed. Our research hypotheses are as follows. Hypothesis 1. Participants will perform tasks faster when there are more communication cues present than less. Hypothesis 2. The presence of either hand gestures or head gaze in any task setting will significantly decrease completion times compared to when it is absent. And hypothesis 3. Mentors and mentees will have differences in what communication cues they prefer in the task. We found that head gaze only, along with conditions with combinations of modalities, perform significantly different from voice only and gestures only for task completion time. We also found that head gaze only, along with conditions with combinations of modalities, perform significantly different from voice only and gestures only for object selection time. We found that voice performed significantly different from head gaze and voice plus gestures plus head gaze, and gestures performed significantly different from voice plus gestures, and voice plus gestures plus head gaze for object manipulation time. For the mentor, gestures only were felt to be the most difficult to communicate with. Voice only and gestures only seemed to make tasks relatively more difficult. Head gaze only was the most mentally engaging condition, and voice only and gestures only were the most physically engaging. For the mentee, voice only and gestures only were felt to be the most difficult to communicate with. Voice only seemed to make tasks relatively more difficult. Voice only, gestures only, and head gaze only was the most mentally engaging condition, and voice only was relatively the most physically engaging. Mentors liked voice plus gestures plus head gaze the most, but liked voice only the least. Meanwhile, mentees also liked voice plus gestures plus head gaze the most, but liked gestures only the least. The main takeaways from this investigation are that head gaze only did not perform significantly different from conditions with multiple conditions, which partially proves the first hypothesis true, since conditions with multiple cues performed better than voice only and gestures only, but not head gaze only. Additionally, gestures only did not perform significantly better than voice, though interestingly, voice plus gestures did not perform significantly different from head gaze only, which partially proves the second hypothesis true, since gestures only did not perform significantly different from voice only. And finally, both mentors and mentees preferred all three modalities present, which shows that our third hypothesis was not supported by our results. For design considerations, voice is best suited for descriptive instructions and explanations. Hand gestures are best suited for close to mid-range spatial indications, as well as physical actions or symbols, and head gaze is best suited for conveying spatial instructions at any distance, as well as a yes or no, though suffers from an inability of giving detailed instructions. For future work, we can vary the number of modalities each individual user has so they could potentially have unequal communication modalities available, employ symmetrical roles instead of asymmetrical roles, randomize the location of objects on the shelf to prevent muscle memory, investigate the use of more cues, and place more than 2 users to perform a task and investigate interactions between these users. In conclusion, we investigated the use of natural communication modalities, which were voice, hand gestures, and head gaze, in collaborative VR. An asymmetric and synchronous assembly task was used to carry out this investigation. Head gaze only, along with conditions with multiple modalities combined, performed significantly different than voice only and hand gestures only. A less unequal distribution of workload in asymmetric collaborative tasks could potentially reduce frustration and task completion difficulty, and our investigation creates inferences for which modalities are useful in the context of collaborative VR, along with raising questions about varying VR collaborative scenarios.